Greetings from UNSW Sydney. Now I'm going to do a quick overview of JDBC and its implementation in a Java Eclipse web project. So these are the topics we are going to cover. We will start with an introduction of JDBC, which is followed by the method it uses to access databases. Then we will have a look at the development process. Of course, the development of a website is a huge project. Here we only focus on the part related to JDBC. And next, we will go over some useful classes. And finally, we will finish this video by showing you a real example, which is actually our work for the former assignment. So what is JDBC? JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity. It is an API that enables connections between Java applications and the relational databases. As you can see here, this is the famous three-tier architecture of a typical web application. We have presentation layer here, and we have logic layer as well as data layer. Let's assume that you are doing a project in Java. So for the logic part, you are using Java technologies and the APIs. Then you are trying to use the data stored in a relational database, for example, in a SQL. So you need to add some code between application logic layer and data layer, between these two layers. In this case, JDBC provides you with the APIs and codes you can use to query the database and get the result set you want. So JDBC should be somewhere between your data layer and logic layer. We call it data access layer. This layer supports the connection to different databases. So JDBC is a package of Java classes that provides access to RDBS via SQL. JDBC offers simplicity as well as database independence. Here, simplicity means that you can easily get familiar with the API no matter which vendor it belongs to. You needn't worry about that. And a vendor would have to produce JDBC drivers. A JDBC driver is a segment of code designed to enable access to a particular kind of database. It's just a part of the API. Okay, here is a nice diagram showing different drivers produced by different vendors. In fact, JDBC supports a large number of databases, such as Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, Postgres, almost all relational databases. And in terms of the development process, basically we have 5 steps. Step 1, load JDBC driver for specific RDBMS. Step 2, get connection to databases. Step 3, create a statement object. Step 4, execute the query to obtain result. And finally, step 5, process result set. Here the result set is a Java class containing the table you get from a select query. You will see it shortly. Here are some useful classes. One is statement. It represents a SQL statement to be sent to DBMS. A statement is sent to DBMS via execute method. And another one is result set. It holds the result of executing a SQL query. And it handles access both to rows and columns within rows. There are other useful classes. I won't get into the details, but they are equally important as the previous ones. You will see them in the example. Okay, now let's go through the examples and see what we can actually do with JDBC. Let's have a look at the database we used for the example. We choose MySQL as our relational database. So now I will open a MySQL console. And we have already built a database called DBLP. So let's switch to DBLP. And the table we are going to use in DBLP is called user. So this is the content of user. As you can see here, its attributes include UID, username, password, email, nickname, first name, and so on. And there are already two tuples of data here. So now I think it's time to switch to Eclipse and see how we can connect to this database by using JDBC. This is Java Eclipse interface, and now we will build a new project. We choose dynamic web project like what we did in assignment 2, and we name it test JDBC. And we create a new package which is called model. And inside the model, we create a new class whose name is DBHandler. This class will deal with the connection and disconnection to the database, both of which are important components for accessing any database. We begin our coding by loading a JDBC driver. Since we have chosen MySQL, we add the corresponding external jar to our project, which is called MySQL connector. And we have already downloaded it from an official website. And this is the website. Now let's begin to write DBHandler. First, we will define some attributes. One is URL. It contains the host name, which is localhost, and port number 3306. And we choose use Unicode, and character encoding is UTF-8. And another attribute is user. This is the user of the database. And another one is password. After creating a connection object, we see an error here. This is because we haven't imported the class connection in package JDBC. And then we write some methods. One is get connection. And this method will be used every time you try to connect to the database. And we also use try and catch to deal with any exceptions. There are 4 objects involved in connecting to the database, and we should close them after using them. So one is connection, and one is statement, and one is prepared statement, and one is result side. We take them as the parameters of function close all. And of course, just as above, we have to surround these codes with try and catch in case any exceptions here. And we close result side. And then we close statement. And now prepared statement. And finally, we close the connection. In order to show the content of the database in a web page, we use Java Bean to transform every tuple in the database to a Java object. And we build a Java Bean. And here is the script we use in our former assignment. And we paste them here. So every attribute here is corresponding to the attribute in the database with the same name. And also we generate the getter and setter for them. After all these procedures, we are now ready to query the data from the database. So now we create a new class, user.dom. and we add the attribute. Of course, we have to import relevant packages. Then we write the function getUsers. This function will return a list of user beans. First, we get connection from DB handler. And then we write the string, which is the select query we are going to send to the database. And then I select the string as the prepare statement. And finally, we execute the query and get the result in result site. So now we can iterate through the result site. And the data in the result set is mapped to user bin with all these set and get operations. And finally, we close the resources we used before. This is the web page containing the users we get from the database. As you can see, there are two users which are identical to those in the database. So we successfully retrieved the data using JDBC. I think that's all I want to cover now. Hope you will find this video helpful. Thank you for watching and bye for now.